Well, I have a missing daughter.
Okay, how old is she?
She's 8.
When's the last time you saw her?
Oh, it's about 3. She told me she was going over to this one girl to play, and she hasn't been home. And I went looking all over.
I told you it was an accident. I know it was. Accidents happen.
I went to church. I was there. And when I came outside, I was there. I went to take it out. It was heavy. She was in there. She wasn't breathing.
California is now a hunt for a killer. The body of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu was found hidden not far from her hometown.
Ever since
A little girl runs out of her house on a Friday afternoon full of energy, laughing, wearing her favorite Hello Kitty shirt. She waves goodbye to her mom, skips across the street, and disappears. No screaming, no struggle, no witnesses. She was there 1 second, and then she just wasn't. And the person who took her? Someone her family had invited into their home. Someone they trusted completely. This is one of the most unsettling true crime cases to ever come out of California. And if you've never heard the full story, you need to hear it now. Tracy, California. Not the kind of city that makes headlines. Tucked into the heart of the Central Valley, it sits comfortably between two worlds. Quiet suburban neighborhoods on one side, the rush of the San Francisco Bay Area on the other. A lot of locals make that daily commute through the Altamont Pass, watching the wind turbines spin along the hillside, while the city behind them stays still. Tracy grew up around the railroad, a place people pass through, and somewhere along the way, a lot of them just decided to stay. Because it was calm. It felt safe. And for most families, Predictable was exactly what they wanted. That's the kind of place Sandra Cantu called home. 8 years old, 2nd grade, living in the Orchard Estates mobile home park, with her mom Maria and her 3 older siblings, Miranda, Simone, and Thomas. Her parents had been divorced for years, and her dad Daniel lived far away, but the kids talked to him almost every single day. That connection never faded. If you asked anyone who knew Sandra to describe her in one word, you'd probably hear the same thing over and over, and alive. Not just in the sense that she was breathing, but in every possible way. Her brother Thomas said she almost never stopped moving. She helped her mom bake. She helped her grandparents in the garden. She took gymnastics and the dance. Most afternoons she was outside, knocking on neighbors' doors, asking if anyone wanted to play. And if nobody could, she'd find a way to entertain herself and genuinely enjoy it. She didn't hold grudges, didn't sulk. She bounced back fast and moved on. School wasn't something Sandra dreaded. She looked forward to it every morning and came home every afternoon practically bursting, ready to tell her family every single detail of her day. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me what city or state you're watching from. I'm genuinely curious where this true crime documentary is reaching, and if you want more stories like this one, subscribe. We put everything into these, and it means more than you know. Now back to Tracy. It was an ordinary Friday, a regular school day. A little after 2 in the afternoon, Sandra came home, dropped her backpack inside, and immediately wanted back outside. Her brother had just gotten home too, and Sandra had zero interest in staying indoors. The Orchard Estates Park was small, as in about 100 residents, right next to a neighborhood park where kids played outside all the time. Maria didn't stress about it. She always called Sandra in when dinner was ready, and Sandra always came. Sandra changed into her favorite Hello Kitty top, pulled on her black leggings, gave her mom a quick hug, and ran out the door. A few hours passed. When dinner time came, Maria sent Thomas out to call the kids in. Miranda was nearby and came straight home. Sandra didn't answer. Thomas searched for about 20 minutes. No sign of her anywhere. Maria and Simone got in the car and drove through the area, stopping to ask neighbors if they'd seen her. Nobody had. Not for hours. At 7:30 that evening, Maria called 911. From that moment on, Sandra Cantu was officially a missing child. Because of Sandra's age, there was no waiting period, no, let's see what happens by morning.
Well, I have a missing daughter.
Okay, how old is she?
She's 8.
When's the last time you saw her?
Oh, it's about 3. She told me she was going over to this one girl to play, and she hasn't been home. And I went looking all over.
Detectives moved immediately. K-9 units were brought in, given Sandra's clothing to track her scent through the park and into the surrounding area. The dogs followed a trail that led toward a main road, and then stopped cold. Just like that, the scent was gone. No direction, no next step, nothing. While officers canvassed the park, something quietly unsettling started to surface. The number of residents in Orchard Estates with serious documented histories was unusually high for a community that small. People with troubling pasts living within feet of where Sandra played every single day. One name that kept coming up was an ice cream truck driver who regularly worked the area. Neighbors said his behavior around children made them uncomfortable. Uncomfortable enough that people had tried to chase him off more than once. It wasn't proof of anything, but it wasn't nothing either. Then Sandra's grandfather Joe mentioned something that turned out to be critical. He had recently installed security cameras on the property after a prior incident, and those cameras had captured exactly what Maria described, Sandra leaving the house, heading outside to play. A little while later, the footage showed her again, skipping, relaxed, completely at ease. She looked like a kid on her way home for dinner. But instead of climbing the steps to her front door, she turned and walked toward one of the exits of the mobile home park. After that, she was gone from the frame entirely. That one detail shifted everything. Sandra knew she wasn't supposed to leave the park without a family member or a trusted adult. Everyone who knew her confirmed that. So the fact that she walked in that direction, calmly, without hesitation, told investigators one thing clearly. Something or someone had caught her attention. Someone she recognized. Someone she felt completely safe with. Investigators also looked closely at her father, Daniel. He hadn't seen Sandra in person for some time, and there had been financial and custody disputes between him and Maria in the past. But Maria was direct. She did not believe Daniel had anything to do with her daughter's disappearance, and the facts backed her up. Daniel lived well outside Tracy, and his co-workers confirmed he had been at work the entire weekend. Detectives verified it, cleared him, and moved on. By the 48-hour mark, investigators had already processed over 700 tips. Reports of girls matching Sandra's description were coming in from across California. Officials were careful but honest. Statistically, the most likely scenario was that she was still somewhere in Tracy. But if a credible lead came in from Nevada, Southern California, anywhere at all, they would follow it. No exceptions. Time, though, was slipping fast. Local authorities recognized they needed more firepower, and that's when CARD was activated, the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team, a specialized FBI unit built specifically for situations like this one. The team was led by Special Agent Joseph Bryan, and he didn't sugarcoat it. After this much time, he said, the odds of a good outcome were narrowing. In most cases like this, the stories don't end the way everyone is hoping. But until there was confirmation of something final, the focus stayed on the possibility, however slim, that Sandra was still out there.
A missing 8-year-old Tracy girl, it continues this morning.
Investigators say Sandra Cantu walked away from her home at the Orchard Estates mobile home park in Tracy. KCRA3 Sherricana Shams live in Tracy where the search continues right now.
Well, good morning. Behind me is the Orchard Estates mobile home park. You can see Tracy police are stationed out here, and we've watched this morning as they've stopped and questioned people driving out of the mobile home park to get their day started today. Now, this is part of the police investigation unfolding in front of us. There's also what the volunteers are doing, and there's been an emotional search for the little girl.
And I wish we didn't have to be here, and I wish she was at home with her family, and I hope if somebody has her, they bring her home. She needs to be home with her family and her friends and all these people that care, because we all care. That's why we're all here.
And that's the voice of just one of some estimated 300 volunteers looking for the girl over the weekend. 8-year-old Sandra Cantu is Hispanic, 4 feet tall, and weighs 45 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. So far, what we know from that surveillance tape is that it shows little Sandra Cantu leaving the mobile home park about 4 p.m. and then returning and then walking away again. So the question, where did she walk to that last time that she was being seen on that tape? And where is she today is what everybody would like to know. The investigation out here continues. Police say if you know anything, you're urged to contact Tracy Police.
More than 200 officers from agencies across the region were now involved. For Northern California, it was only the second operation of this scale ever mounted. The police chief later said she had to physically order her officers to go home and rest, because they refused to stop. They were running on nothing, terrified that even an hour away from the case could mean missing the one detail that mattered. It hadn't come yet, but it was coming. As the days dragged on, the community gathered for an evening vigil, candles, tears, and the kind of silence that says everything words can't. Thomas stood there with everyone else, and even in that moment, surrounded by hope and prayer, he said he already felt it somewhere deep inside. This wasn't going to end the way the people were praying it would. Something serious had happened to his little sister. He just didn't know how serious yet. Then around 8:30 that same evening, something happened that pulled investigators' attention away from the crowd. A woman came running toward officers in a visible state of panic, barely catching her breath. Her name was Melissa. She lived just a few trailers down from Sandra's family, and she told officers she had found a handwritten note lying near one of the mailboxes. The moment she read it, she dropped it and ran straight to find police. The note read, "Cantu placed inside a stolen suitcase thrown in water on BTI Road and Whitehall Road." The room went quiet. Even the wording was strange. The spelling errors looked deliberate, almost calculated, like someone had carefully placed them to create a certain impression. And the timing? Strong winds were blowing that night. Most residents were gathered at the vigil. Officers had been actively patrolling the area for days. The idea that someone had walked up to those mailboxes and dropped that note, right then, in that exact window, felt anything but random. It felt staged, but the note pointed to a real location, and that meant investigators had to move. Before anything else, though, they needed Melissa's full statement on record. She came in for questioning with FBI agents handling the interview. Beyond being a neighbor, Melissa taught Sunday school at her grandfather's church, where he served as pastor. She had been through a divorce, recently ended another relationship, and was currently living with her grandparents and her 5-year-old daughter. Sandra and her sisters visited Melissa's trailer regularly. They came over to play with her little girl. The Cantu family knew Melissa well. They trusted her. During questioning, Melissa said that when she found the note, she didn't look around and didn't notice anyone nearby, didn't see anything suspicious. Officers asked for permission to search her car. She agreed. Inside the glove compartment, they found a post-it note with a few words written on it, then crossed out like someone had second-guessed themselves. It was sent for analysis. For the moment, Melissa was released. Investigators turned their attention to the note itself. She also provided detectives with a list of people in the park she considered concerning. One resident had a troubled history and frequent contact with children. Another had been seen in uncomfortable situations involving kids. She also named a father and son who, she claimed, had photos of neighborhood children on their phones, including Sandra, despite having no family connection to them whatsoever. All of them agreed to come in for questioning. Some took polygraph tests. Results were mixed. But without hard evidence, investigators couldn't move forward on any of them. Everyone remained on the list. Nobody was ruled out. Still, something about Melissa kept pulling investigators back. She had more specific information about the park's residents than almost anyone else, but neighbors had a different way of describing her. Someone who always wanted to be at the center of things. Someone who would stretch a story to keep attention on herself. Detectives were trying to figure out which version of Melissa they were actually dealing with. A genuinely helpful witness or someone playing a role she had written herself. Background checks started filling in the picture. Melissa had a documented history of mental and emotional health struggles, with multiple periods of medical supervision. She had prior legal incidents involving property offenses. Her name had surfaced in separate cases involving property damage. Each time she had left the city before those investigations wrapped up. In 2003, she filed for bankruptcy and had been paying off significant debts ever since. When investigators tried to bring her in for another interview, they found out she had voluntarily checked herself into inpatient care following a serious episode. She later described it as a period where she felt she had lost control of herself. Her condition was stabilized, but she refused any further interviews. Meanwhile, officers and search and rescue teams made their way to the location described in the note. The directions led to an irrigation pond, a drainage convergence point, wide and murky, with conditions that made any kind of search almost impossible. Zero visibility, no access to the bottom. Whatever was in that water was not going to give itself up easily. The team noted the location, kept it under watch, and waited. 10 days had now passed since Sandra disappeared. Then one morning, workers began lowering the water level at the pond for routine drainage work. As the water dropped, a dark suitcase surfaced near the muddy shoreline, closed, secured, just sitting there. Inside, investigators found Sandra Cantu. She was wearing her black leggings and her Hello Kitty top. Exactly what she had on the afternoon she ran out of the house. The medical examiner's report later confirmed that Sandra had passed very shortly after she was last seen on that surveillance camera. An unknown substance had been found in her system. No biological evidence was immediately recovered that pointed to a specific individual, but the timeline was clear. Whatever happened, happened fast, within hours of her leaving home. The same little girl who knocked on every door in that park, asking if someone could come outside and play. The same kid neighbors invited in for dinner and treated like one of their own. Gone. and the community that had spent 10 days holding on to hope was now left holding something much heavier. With the medical examiner's findings now in hand, investigators moved quickly to build a profile of whoever was responsible. Based on everything established so far, they were looking for an adult white male, roughly 25 to 40 years old, with a serious documented history. Someone Sandra knew, someone she would have approached without a second thought. Most likely a resident of Orchard Estates, or someone closely connected to a person who lived there. Every male in the area fitting that description had their alibi checked, every single one held up. So investigators widened the net and started talking to people who lived near the irrigation pond. That's when a neighbor mentioned something he had almost brushed off entirely. He lived close to the drainage area and remembered seeing a dark purple two-tone SUV parked near the pond on the same Friday Sandra disappeared. The vehicle stood out immediately, and it didn't belong to anyone local, and the spot where it was parked made no sense. That stretch of road was muddy, swampy, and completely out of the way. Nobody parked there. Curious, the man walked closer to get a better look. The SUV was empty. As he scanned the area, a woman suddenly appeared from behind the trees. She offered a quick explanation, said she had stopped for just a few minutes for personal reasons, got into the vehicle and drove away fast. The description he gave matched Melissa exactly. Surveillance footage confirmed it, and the same woman, same SUV. From that moment on, Melissa was no longer a witness. She was the primary person of interest. Detectives went back through everything. Every statement, every timeline, every detail she had offered since the night she came running toward officers at the vigil. The contradictions were stacking up fast. Melissa, for her part, held firm. She had no idea what happened to Sandra. All she did was find a note and report it. When pressed about the critical window around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the same time frame Sandra was last seen on camera, Melissa told police she had been at her grandfather's church, decorating a classroom. She hadn't noticed anything unusual. Investigators asked her to confirm that. That's when her phone records became the turning point. The records showed that Melissa had in fact called police that afternoon, but not about Sandra. She called to report a missing suitcase from her yard. She also sent the message to Maria that read, "Tell the police that today around 4 o'clock in the afternoon something was taken from me. I don't know if it means anything or even matters." It mattered. It mattered enormously. The suitcase found in that irrigation pond, the one Sandra was inside, was a black Eddie Bauer model, an exact match down to the color and style to the suitcase Melissa had reported missing, and the note Melissa claimed to have stumbled across near the mailboxes, it didn't just mention a suitcase. It specifically said, a stolen suitcase. For that version of events to be true, someone would have had to randomly wander into Melissa's yard, take her suitcase, use it the way it was used, carry everything out in broad daylight without a single witness, and then somehow, Melissa, out of everyone in that park, just happened to be the one who found the note left behind. Investigators weren't just skeptical, they were done entertaining it. Detectives made the decision to put her phone under surveillance. 2 days after she was released from the hospital, a recorded call raised fresh concerns. Melissa reached out to Maria and offered to have Sandra's older sister Miranda come stay the night at her place. Miranda agreed. When she came home the next morning, she told her mother something felt off. Melissa had barely mentioned Sandra at all. Instead, she kept steering the conversation toward the investigation, what the police knew, how far along they were, what information they had gathered. Miranda couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The case was building, but it was still largely circumstantial. Then another neighbor came forward. He told investigators that shortly before Sandra disappeared, Melissa had taken one of the neighborhood children to the park for several hours without the parents' knowledge or permission. When the girl came home, her parents knew immediately that something was wrong. She could barely stand. Her speech was slurred. They rushed her to get checked out. Tests revealed an unknown substance in her system, the same category of substance later identified in Sandra's case. Melissa denied any involvement. No charges were filed at the time, but the pattern was impossible to ignore now. Feeling the pressure, Melissa reached out to a journalist, hoping to get her version of events on the record and publicly distance herself from the investigation. It didn't work the way she planned. Instead, the move helped accelerate what came next.
These are over here in our church so much because Sandra was my daughter's best friend and came over here almost every day to play with my daughter. And another thing is the suitcase. That was my suitcase. It was stolen out from in front of my house. In order to make a report, it was over $200. I had to go online and make a report, and I do not have access to the internet.
So do you believe your missing suitcase was the same suitcase that Sandra was found in?
I do not know. From what I can see on TV, it does not look like my suitcase. The police have not disclosed any information as to whether or not it is my suitcase.
There was a situation where you and your daughter were out with another kid, and then what happened there? Was someone accused you of something?
Oh, I had taken my daughter and one of her friends to the park, which I had done for the third time that week. The mother was, I guess, at work, and the grandmother had told the little girl that she could go to the park, which she does all the time. And when the mother came home, she didn't know where she was. I'd given the mother my phone number, used my cell phone number in case there was anything to happen. Everything was fine. I brought her back. Police were called out at the time, and I was then called by my grandparents because her mother did not know that she was missing. That she was with me.
Investigators obtained a search warrant for Melissa's trailer and for her grandfather's church. What they found inside the trailer effectively ended any remaining doubt. A notebook. And the handwriting inside it was a direct, confirmed match to the note Melissa claimed she had simply found lying near the mailboxes. Forensic experts were unequivocal. Same hand, same pen pressure, same distinctive style. No room for debate. The post-it note recovered from her glove compartment earlier was also fully analyzed by this point. Written on it, BTI Road, Whitehall Road, Water. The exact details from that same note. Investigators also found a prescribed medication in Melissa's name, the same category of substance identified during the medical examinations connected to Sandra's case. The search of the church delivered the final pieces. Officers recovered a common household object with a damage handle that carried traces forensically linked to Sandra. A section of cord was also found to be missing from one of the window blinds. An FBI analyst confirmed that the cord material matched what had been used to further secure the suitcase found in the pond. There was nothing left to interpret. The picture was complete. Melissa was brought in one final time. Her story hadn't changed. She sat across from detectives and gave them the same version she had been giving since the beginning, but this time investigators laid everything on the table, all of it piece by piece without rushing. When the last item was placed in front of her, Melissa broke. She started crying and couldn't stop.
Between 5:30 and 5:40, two people saw your car stopped on Whitehall Road. They saw you come from out of the bushes on Whitehall Road, and someone asked you what?
I was okay, and I said I was going to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing, Melissa?
Through her sobs, she said,
It was an accident.
I told you it was an accident. I know it was. Accidents happen.
Kill her. I went to church. I was scared. And when I came outside, I looked at my suitcase. I went to take it out, and it was heavy. And she was in there. And she wasn't breathing or anything.
What did she look like?
She looked pale. And I killed her.
Huh?
I thought that she was dead. And I panicked.
So what happened?
I tried to wake her up, and she wouldn't wake up. And I didn't know what else to do.
What came out next was a story that investigators immediately recognized as fiction dressed up as confession. Melissa claimed that Sandra had spotted her getting into her car near the house and simply walked over to say hello. She said Sandra noticed the suitcase on the back seat and, just playing around, climbed inside it without Melissa realizing. She said that by the time she reached the church and went to take the suitcase out of the car, Sandra was already unresponsive inside. She claimed she panicked, tried to help, realized it was too late, and made the decision to hide what happened. Detectives let her talk. Every time she told the story, it got more complicated. More details were added, more pieces shifted, and every new version created new contradictions with the physical evidence already in hand. The medical examiner's findings made it unambiguous. What happened to Sandra was not an accident. The substance in her system and the circumstances in which she was found told a very different story than the one Melissa was offering. When she finally went quiet, officers placed her under arrest. Melissa was formally charged with the most serious offenses related to the unlawful taking and death of Sandra Cantu. Additional charges were later filed in connection with the incident involving the other neighborhood child, as well as a separate case involving a 37-year-old former partner. Investigators made one point absolutely clear. Sandra trusted Melissa completely. She would have walked up to that car without a single hesitation if Melissa had called her over. According to police, that's exactly what happened. Melissa called her over, most likely under the pretense of needing help getting ready for something at the church. Sandra said yes, without a second thought. From there, investigators believe she was taken inside, given a substance that caused her to lose awareness, and the events that followed led to her death. While an entire community was out searching, putting up flyers, driving through neighborhoods, holding vigils, and praying, Melissa was filing a police report about a missing suitcase, sending messages to Sandra's mother, planting a handwritten note, and positioning herself as a concerned neighbor, doing everything she could to help find the little girl next door. Melissa initially entered a not guilty plea. Her defense leaned heavily on her mental health history, arguing that a serious psychological condition diagnosed after years of untreated trauma significantly affected her behavior and judgment. They pointed to a deeply painful personal experience she had gone through at age 19, something her legal team argued had never been properly addressed, and had quietly shaped everything that followed. While in custody, Melissa showed repeated signs of severe emotional distress, and was eventually placed under close observation for her own safety. Her parents told reporters they were completely blindsided. They had never seen anything in their daughter that would have raised a red flag. Friends described her as a warm mother, a kind neighbor, an open and friendly person. During the proceedings, Melissa's mother, Judy, addressed Maria directly from the courtroom. She said she felt the weight of Maria's pain as one mother to another, that if she could give her real justice, the only justice that would ever truly matter, it would be to give her Sandra back, alive, right now.
It is not enough that I say I'm sorry, but that is all I can do. From the day Sandra has died, I've had to live with the consequences of what I've done. For the rest of my life, I'm going to have to live with these feelings. I loved Sandra a great deal. She was a sweet, innocent little girl who did not deserve to have such a short life. I alone are responsible for Sandra's death. I would like to apologize directly to you, Maria, for all of the pain that I've caused you. I should not have taken Sandra from you. And I want you to know that she did not suffer, and I did not sexually molest your daughter. I would also like to apologize to my own daughter, whom I've lost. I hope that someday you will forgive me. I love you a great deal, and I hope to see you again someday soon. I owe an apology to the people of Tracy, the police officers who spent so much time looking for Sandra. I know in my heart that God has forgiven me, and I know my family has forgiven me, and I'm asking you, Maria, for your forgiveness. I can't imagine forgiving somebody who would harm my own daughter, but I hope that someday you can forgive me. Maria, I wish I could give you an explanation for what happened. I owe you an explanation, but I still cannot understand why I did what I did. Every day, I try to discover my motivation, but I still do not have an answer. This is a question I will struggle with for the rest of my life. And I hope that this apology will help you in some way by accepting responsibility for what I have done. I hope that I can give you some peace.
When Melissa came face to face with the full weight of what the prosecution had built, she changed her plea. She admitted guilt on the most serious charges and accepted responsibility for what happened to Sandra. Several additional charges were dropped as part of the agreement, and the harshest possible legal penalty was taken off the table. The prosecution stood before the court and made clear that based on the medical findings and the full sequence of events, this case represented one of the most heartbreaking situations any of them had ever been a part of. Sandra's father, Daniel, then stood up and spoke directly to Melissa. What he said in that courtroom, no prepared statement could have captured. It came from somewhere that only a parent who has lost a child in that way could ever reach.
You took the life of an innocent little girl, and she didn't do nothing. She's not even old enough to decide to eat ice cream yet. And nothing changes, and nothing's gonna change the fact whether I cry There ain't nothing you do in life ever gonna change anything.
Mr. Cantu, I need you to address your comments to me.
She changed the lives of a lot of people. All I can say right now is repent and think about what you've done. I'm sorry.
The judge sentenced Melissa to life in state prison without the possibility of parole. No second chances, no future hearings, the rest of her life behind bars. To this day, Melissa has never fully explained what happened. She has never given Sandra's family the one thing they have asked for since the beginning, the complete truth. The district attorney noted that across Melissa's history, investigators had documented roughly 20 separate incidents involving erratic, attention-seeking behavior. In his view, that same pattern ran like a thread through every single moment of this case, from the vigil, to the note, to the late-night phone calls, to the media interview. The need to be at the center of it all never stopped driving her, even as the walls were closing in. That Friday, Sandra ran out of her front door after one of the best days she had had at school in a while. She was excited about the weekend. She wanted to see her friends. She had no reason, not a single one, to be afraid of anything. Understanding what happened to her inside that church at the hands of someone her family had welcomed into their lives is something that doesn't get easier the more you sit with it. It gets harder. Not far from her school, the Tracy community built a memorial in Sandra's honor. A tree with pink blossoms, a small sand volleyball court, a little playhouse they named Sandra's Cottage. Her grandfather said he wanted it to be a place Sandra would have loved, somewhere she could have come with her brothers and sisters, somewhere other kids could gather, play, and just be kids. Neighbors said Sandra was the daughter of the whole community. Everyone knew her. Everyone looked out for her. And her disappearance became a painful, permanent reminder of how fast everything can change.
Today would have been murder victim Sandra Cantu's 9th birthday. Her family and friends gathered to remember her short life and to honor those who had tried to save her.
KCRA3's Damani Lewis is live for us in Tracy with more on this painful birthday observance.
You can see there's a happy birthday balloon here on this tree, as well as several flowers at the base of this tree that was dedicated to Sandra Cantu. People in attendance called the service a celebration of life for Sandra. Times in my life. A fitting opening song.
She's a beautiful girl.
For a mother who has needed a family and community to lean on through difficult times.
Yeah, there's a lot more people than what I thought.
Overwhelmed by the amount of support, Maria Chavez, mother of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu, found herself engulfed by friends and strangers alike, all here in support of what would have been the 9th birthday of Tracy's angel. For many here, they choose not to focus on the pain of the past.
This is the celebration of life, absolutely. It's to go beyond the negativity that has happened and to keep the positive.
That's where Sandra's strength is in this community.
And every story shared of Sandra, a tear soon followed. But on this night, family members say they gained strength through the community. And comfort knowing Sandra is in a better place and her spirit free from harm.
She was happy, she loved life.
One of the officers who worked the case said it simply, "Life is priceless. That little girl was only 8 years old, and that was it." Thomas, her brother, put it this way: "She took away one of the biggest parts of our lives. The joy of watching someone grow, of seeing who they could have become. Time heals some of the pain, but there are things that stay with you forever. And that's okay. That's what makes us human." If this story stayed with you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're new here and you want more true crime documentaries told this way, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.